Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about Russia. A top Russian general has been killed in Moscow and Ukraine has claimed responsibility. Another senior Russian, Mikhail Shatsky, a weapons expert, was killed just last week. And the big question is hanging in the air. How will Russia respond really? Has Ukraine, in desperation, escalated the conflict into total war? Will Russia target senior figures in the Ukraine government and military? What happens from here onwards? Russia has always been ready for a larger war with NATO. It has now, in fact, threatened to prepare for a war with NATO. How severe will be Moscow's response? In a parallel development, Russia has developed the capacity to cut Ukraine's link with its crucial Starlink satellites, which could have enormous consequences on its battlefield performance. But before that, details of the general's killing, which Russians are calling terrorism. Let me just break this up. It's a startling and complex story with lots of layers of developments and details that are not widely known. A senior Russian general, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, was killed in a bomb blast in Moscow. Less than a day earlier, Ukraine accused him of ordering chemical weapon attacks on its troops. The explosion occurred outside his home about 7 kilometers from the Kremlin, killing Kirillov and his assistant. Investigators suggesting a bomb hidden on a scooter detonated as Kirillov prepared to leave for work. Moscow state media reporting the bomb contained up to 300 grams of TNT equivalent. Both men reportedly died even before medical help arrived. Ukraine's intelligence service, the SBU, has claimed responsibility. A source within the agency told Reuters that Kirillov was considered a war criminal and a legitimate target. But what does his death mean for the already volatile situation between Russia and Ukraine is the immediate question that arises. You see, Kirillov was a senior figure in Russia's chemical and biological defense forces. In fact, he faced accusations from Ukraine of ordering nearly 5,000 chemical weapon attacks. These allegedly included the use of K-1 grenades containing toxic irritants. But just a month ago, Kirillov, in fact, accused Ukraine of using cluster munitions laced with chlorine in the Kursk region. This is the highest profile assassination of a Russian military official in Moscow since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. That's how significant this development is, and follows the killing of Mikhail Shatsky, a weapons expert, shot dead just last week outside Moscow by a suspected Ukrainian assassin. The question is, are we witnessing a coordinated Ukrainian campaign targeting Russia's military elite? The Kremlin has remained silent so far, but the implications are massive. Meanwhile, the Russian defense minister has said that Russia must prepare for war with NATO. You heard that right. As well as complete its war against Ukraine. Belousov made those comments before the Russian Defense Ministry in Moscow on Monday. In a joint meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Belousov told the Defense Ministry they must prepare for war with NATO within the next decade. He attributed the decisions taken by NATO against Russia during its summit in Washington, D.C. in July. In a nutshell, all 32 member states of NATO approved a declaration that primarily involved providing support for Ukraine against Russia in the war and condemning countries that supported Russia during the conflict. Belousov also said that Russian forces are gaining massive ground in Ukraine, citing advances across multiple fronts.
This year, Russian troops have liberated almost 4,500 square kilometers of territory occupied by the enemy. They control less than 1% of the territory of the Luhansk People's Republic and still around 25 to 30% of the Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. The average daily progression has now accelerated considerably, and we are now gaining around 30 square kilometers a day.
In fact, Belousov also highlighted that Russia has recruited over 427,000 troops this year, which, by the way, is an average of 1,200 troops a day. 1,200 a day. At the same meeting, Putin also blamed NATO for escalating tensions. He pointed to increased Western military spending and the presence of over 100,000 US troops in Europe. But most importantly, Putin said that Russia needs to launch serial production of various Russian systems, specifically mentioning the Oreshnik ballistic missile first used against Ukraine last month.
We must organize serial production of such systems like Oreshnik in the near future to ensure security of Russia and our allies, and it undoubtedly will be done.
Amid these developments, Russia's military has unveiled the Kalinka monitoring system. What is that? Basically, a tool capable of detecting and targeting drones using satellite systems like Elon Musk's Starlink. You see, Ukraine has relied heavily on Starlink for battlefield cooperation and drone operations. We've been telling you about this. As per reports, Kalinka can detect aerial and maritime drones up to 15 kilometers away, potentially disrupting Ukraine's drone strikes. Reportedly, it could even neutralize Starlink's militarized version, Starshield. Starlink has been reportedly vital for Ukraine since the war started in 2022. It has enabled encrypted communications, coordinated drone strikes, and provided real-time battlefield intelligence. Without it, Ukraine's ability to counter Russian advances could significantly suffer. So could this new system give Russia a significant technological edge? Could it prove to be a game changer? And just how soon will Russia be able to introduce this system? How will Ukraine now rethink its strategies, if at all? These questions highlight the precarious state between Russia and Ukraine. If Russia prepares for conflict with NATO, what will this mean for Europe and the world? And as Ukraine ramps up its targeted strikes, will this provoke Russia into more drastic measures? Will it lead to broader implications? NATO allies have supported Ukraine with billions in aid and advanced weaponry. But as the stakes continue to mount, how far are they willing to go? Could a direct conflict between NATO and Russia become absolutely unavoidable? At this moment of great uncertainty, there are, unfortunately, more questions.